Why
Right.
mess with my happiness? It wasn't about the money. But girl, it is about the money at the end of the day
Yeah.
because money equates to your value and what you're putting out. And as soon as it comes down to having to lay people off, they have no problem figuring that out.
Hey there, besties, and welcome to our cozy corner of the podcasting world. It's time for another episode of Share a Latte. I'm Min, your virtual coffee bestie and host. Imagine us in a cozy cafe, the aroma of freshly brewed coffee in the air, and ready to embark on an inspiring journey. In each episode, remarkable women share their stories of triumphs over life's challenges, providing a warm embrace for your soul. These tales remind you of resilience and determination are keys to success. So grab your favorite brew, get comfy, and join us for the conversation that will awaken your mind and heart. You'll discover your own power to turn tough times into incredible strengths. The Share a Latte podcast sprinkles hope and courage and the belief that you can not only handle, but thrive into your day. All right, besties, let's embrace those tales of triumphs and get ready for another awesome episode of Share a Latte. Hey, coffee besties, and welcome back to another episode of Share a Latte. I'm Min, your coffee bestie, and today we're diving into a topic that's a little extra shot of motivation for your career. My guest needs no introduction, the amazing Meera Hardin. Meera is my co-host on a podcast called Woke and Pretty, where we dive into weekly events that flood your FYPs and news feeds. Meera is also an amazing career coach with over 18 years in the media hustle. She has transferred her journey into a mission, mentoring women and mastering the art of salary negotiation. She has even 10x her own salary since day one. Now that's some serious espresso-powered success. Ready to learn how to ask for the raise you've been eyeing? Meera's got the playbook and she's ready to share it. Grab your favorite mug, settle in with your favorite roast, and get ready to extract some golden career insights. Let's get brewing.
Well, hello again. Great to talk to you. So, for the listeners there, my name is Meera Hardin, and I am a career coach. I do speaking. I host my own podcast, Brown Girl Trending. And most importantly, my mission is to empower women to basically get the raise that they deserve without being afraid of asking for it. So in my experience, a lot of the women that I worked with and a lot of the experience that I have in the corporate world, which is about a little over 18 years, I found that women were being underpaid, as we all know, of course. But a big reason is that they never asked for it. And in order to get that pay increase that they desire, they would rather leave their current job and all the comforts and what they set up, even if they like the job, because they're just that afraid to ask and be looked at as ungrateful, or a lot of people think they're going to seem greedy. And the thing is, with women, we tend to do so much to prove ourselves, and we're constantly doing it. And I don't want to speak for every woman, but most of the women that I know and that I've experienced and worked with, and they more than deserve what a man is making or more. I mean, we just unfortunately live in a society that we're not valued the same. And because of that value or lack of value, it tends to affect us on a personal life, on a personal level, and in our personal life, mainly because we work so much of our time. And there's no way you can be like, I'm done with work and I'm going to go home and never think about work or what my experience at work. It always coincides. And so my work now is working with women who want to change that and who want to feel more valued, who want that monetary value put on them for that compensates them for the work that they're already doing. So that's what I've been focusing on. And you and I, Min, bonded because we both have corporate experience and have our beautiful stories that we tell.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, I think when you are starting out in your career, being in a big environment or in a company or in an industry, there's a lot to learn and you just see your path of growth. And it's not always that linear path that's presented. And there's a lot of things along the way for us, especially as women. And if you're a woman of color, even more things that's going to be thrown at you that we have to learn to navigate. And there's not that many resources out there that speak to us directly. Because the way that I would handle something as a woman of color has to be different than a white male that's handling something, because we're viewed differently, we're perceived differently, and our reactions, unfortunately, there are stereotypes that's put on us. So that's what I love to talk about, as you can tell. So for any of your listeners, we're here for it.
Oh, I love this. I love this. Tell me again a little bit about the pay gap that you endured or noticed in your own professional corporate life.
Yeah. So I think when I went into the corporate world, entry level, you think, okay, it's whatever it is, that's what you're getting. And usually that's correct. You really can't negotiate your entry level salary that much, at least in my opinion. But as you move onwards, you get a salary increase, you maybe get promoted. I felt like I was working harder. I'm just generally a hard worker. I was taught that way. And I really stupidly thought the more I worked and the harder I worked and the great work that I would produce would mean an automatic promotion. I learned quickly on that it really that's like 40% of it. You still have to be a decent worker, but it's really about your political game. And I knew nothing about that. I knew nothing about walking into someone's office and saying good morning and shooting the SHIT, becoming friends with them. When I first entered the agency world, I think it was at $38,000. Sorry, $38,000 for my first job out of college. And then I went to another job and it was $35,000. And it quickly became a thing because myself and somebody new was making the 35, but everybody else was making 30 because they had changed their standard of what an entry level is. And they did not increase other people's salary. So it was like an issue. And so, okay, so I've taken some pay cuts in my time to move up the ladder. I've taken some pay cuts to move into the profession that I ended up being in. But there's been a few instances where it is glaringly obvious that I am at the top of my game, the best in the company, but not being paid anywhere near that. And one of the biggest gaps that I noticed was I was at this company for a little under 5 years. I pieced out before I hit the 5-year mark. Let me tell you that. And when I started, I already knew, I think I was making $60,000. And for that level, it was already a joke. But I rationed it away. I'm new at this. They're giving me a chance and I get to build my own reputation and money will come later. And I think a lot of us talk about, we give ourselves the explanations to make us feel better about it, even though we know we're worth more. So I went in there and I started from the bottom. I was, doing the most, and they wanted to quiet promote, which basically meant giving me more accounts, more work, a different thing to sell because somebody had left and that somebody was making a good amount of money more than me. And when I said, well, I'm very happy doing what I'm doing, because in my mind, once I do great at what I'm doing, I'm just going to leave to get what I want.
Right.
That was the mentality. And they said, well, no, we'd really like you to do this. And I said, well, how much more is it? And the silence that followed was deafening. It was, well, what do you mean? And I said, well, what do you mean? You said the word promotion. I assume with a promotion, there's more money, isn't there? And he goes, well, that's not something that we thought about. And I said, oh, well, okay, so I'm very good with what I'm doing. I'm under the radar. I'm doing great. Why would I add on a high level thing to myself to be noticed when there was no incentive? So long story short, I ended up moving into that role. They did give me $20,000 more. So I was making about 80 at the time. And then I worked for a couple of years, and every single metric, every single sales metric, new clients, every single thing possible, I was by far up and beyond everybody else. And there were 17 people to compare myself to. And it wasn't until our bonus time came around, the financial assistant had to confirm my salary because she thought it was a mistake a few times because of how little I was getting as a bonus or as a commission. And then when she backed in and realized that my salary was so low, she genuinely thought it was a mistake. She thought there was missing a 1 in front of it, because the new guy that came in was making $180,000 to my $80,000. To be fair, I explained it away again. This guy's a little bit older. He has a family. He came from a big network. I started from the bottom at this company. So it makes sense that I'm not making that. But $100,000 gap is incredibly ridiculous for the same title. And then dude, man, like, you don't understand. And as time went on, I was like, well, let's see what this guy has. Let's see what he could sell.
Okay, before we move on.
Yeah.
Because we're going to have listeners who are asking, was it a white cis male?
What do you think? Why you got to ask these questions?
Because let's be real here. Because I mean, a male in general it's upsetting that they're making that's how big the pay gap is. But I think it's even more upsetting when you're devalued a lot because not just of your sex, but your skin color. So this is more frustrating. So go on.
I was, to be fair, one of the only people of color within that company. There was probably at the given time for the 5 years I've been there, I think the most that we had was 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 people, women, and they were all women, and they were all supporting roles, like the receptionist, the executive assistant, the billing person, maybe an assistant that they hired on a contract, and me, who was clearly a sales awesomeness person. Anyway, so back to that story. I again rationed it away and was like a family, whatever, etc. And I have less experience, so let me just ask for a little bit more money. I should be making over 6 figures at this point. I've been here for 4 years almost, right? And I killed it for all of those 4 years. Numbers don't lie. So I went and I asked my boss, and I didn't even bring him up. I just said, I'm doing all these great things, et cetera, et cetera. Like, I think I deserve a raise. And she just, it's like, oh, okay. And I said, what does that mean? She goes, well, I'll talk to the so-and-so. And I said, well, I'm very close with that person. I'm happy to talk to him because he's the one who promoted me.
Right.
No, I got it. Dude, a year later, they didn't get it. They didn't have it. I would follow up with her, and I did all the wrong things. I never did it the right way. I really would say that now, but I just assumed my manager knew everything I did and knew how to pitch me the right way to get me $10,000 would have made me happy. I didn't have to be up to that guy's level. And I even mentioned it eventually to her in exasperation, because I would follow up with her and I would just get angry and angrier. And then I started to become unhappy at that job that I had turned other interviews down to go to other companies in the media world that was going to pay me a buttload of money because of my reputation that I had built. And I wouldn't even talk to them. To this day, I see people and they're like, you didn't even want to have the conversation. I'm like, yes, because I was very happy there. Why mess with my happiness? It wasn't about the money. But girl, it is about the money at the end of the day, because money equates to your value and what you're putting out. And as soon as it comes down to having to lay people off, they have no problem figuring that out. So why the sense of loyalty that I had was very misguided. I ended up getting a job that paid me, I think it was $120,000. And on the back end, the bonuses were great. So I was like, oh, this is $40,000 more. I'm going to take it. Before I even accepted that job, I didn't even tell anybody. That same, like the day after when I had that offer, I got a raise at this company that I was currently at. And it was $20,000 more. I'm like, yay, I'm at the 100 mark. And she fully expected me to be over the moon happy because I've been asking for it. And I was so cool and calm. And I was like, okay, great. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. And she was stunned, like had no idea that I would react so coldly, I guess, compared to how I am as a person. At the end of the day, it wasn't her fault. She did what she could. I'm sure, I have to believe that. And her manager did what he could. And it really was a relatively small company that could have been expedited within a month. And it wasn't. I had already made my decision to leave to get what I felt like I needed. And actually, I asked for 120 at this new company. I remember now, and they offered me 125. And I knew even then I was asking for too little at a new company because they offered me more than I asked for. So I was already cheap for them. So when I ended up quitting, they couldn't understand. They're like, we gave you what you wanted. I was like, that's not the point. I had to make up something and say I was I just tried to save face and said I was going for a different reason. And then a month later in my new company, she calls me and says that the CEO of this media company that I used to work at, because it was my 1-year anniversary that like I had to leave before, because I was not, my 5-year anniversary. And she called because the CEO came back from vacation and walked into her office and was like, where's Meera? I didn't even know he knew my name. And he wanted explanations, and she wanted to make sure, because he asked her specifically, was it money related? And she said no. And she called me to tell me all of this because in case he calls you, I want to make sure our stories are straight. And in that moment, 2 things happened. 1, girl, you should have just said yes, but you were too afraid because you also are in the situation. She is a white female, but you are also in the situation. And this MF that came in at the 180 is making more than you, and you're a higher title. That should bother you. But she was too afraid. And the second thing was she was trying to secure herself so she doesn't have to rock the boat, right? So anything from me, who already left the company, was going to rock the boat. I was that important enough that the CEO made a trip to her office to ask her specifically where I was. Again, I'm very noticeable. I'm the only person of color on the sales team on that floor. Like, he talks to me. He did like me. He would see me and say hi or whatever. And they would always say it was because I think his wife's Indian. So you kind of look Indian. I'm like, that is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. How about the fact that when I see him, I don't scatter like a cockroach, and I would just go get my coffee still. And I would just say hello like a normal person, but everybody would scatter. That fear mentality.
Of course, yes.
Whatever rocked their boat to explain it away. But it was at that moment that I realized when I left and she called me, and the fear that she had that I was going to say it was the money when she knew fully well it was the money, really, really put things in perspective for me. And I just started on this journey throughout my career that I was not going to settle for anything less. I was always going to negotiate. I was never just going to take what was offered. And if people view me badly for it, that's a problem with them, not with me, because I should be getting what other people are getting paid. I'm not asking for more than that.
Wow. So, I can't believe she called you to save face. Could you imagine?
She was so petrified. The guy, the CEO of this media company, wasn't that huge, but they made bank, right? And it's a company, walked into her little director office, sat down. I noticed when I came back on vacation, Meera left. Where'd she go? Why? Was she not happy here? Like, for a director who never really has interaction with a CEO, because there are levels above her, for him to just come into her office and sit in her little office, legs crossed, and ask her those questions, she didn't know what the hell to do. I don't think I would have. But yeah, that happened.
I'm not sure if I would have known what to do, but I don't think that the conversation would have been with him, would have been anything but truthful. Like, you had a year to rectify the situation a little bit. Like, did you ever find out from her why steps weren't taken sooner?
Don't care.
What was holding it up?
Don't care.
Fair.
And to be fair, I don't know if I was her in that moment, I would have also said it was the money, because then you'd have to explain and throw your boss under the bus and other people that are above you under the bus that they didn't, because you don't know if. So when I asked her the prior 12 months, do I know for a fact that they put together something and went in and pitched it within that month, or did they wait for a good time, which was 6 months to 8 months down the road, and then he granted that proposal? Like, I don't know the timeline, and I would follow up, but I wouldn't get any answers. So I have no idea what happened behind the scenes. And again, it was a very small company. We were on 2 floors of a building. I could have walked over and demanded an answer, but what good is that going to do? There are levels, and there are people who are supposed to do what they're supposed to do. You guys thought I was going to sit here and by the way, for everyone listening, I did continue to work my butt off during that year, no matter how I felt, because I had this fear that if I let any of my numbers slip and I wasn't number one in every single metric, that they would have an excuse to say no. And I refused to let them have that. So that year was hell for me, because not only was I going through all these emotions, feeling undervalued, even though my numbers didn't lie, I had turned down jobs or potential jobs that were throwing money at me because I was quote unquote happy. And now here I am in the situation. So like, I don't know. I don't know if I was her, I would have just said, yes, it was the money, and here's all the things wrong, because then that would have been a bigger explanation, a bigger investigation, maybe even. And I think she was just covering her ass, and in case he picked up the phone and called me, which would be weird enough, that the CEO of a media company in New York City would pick up the phone and call a salesperson to be like, why'd you leave the company? But, maybe it would have made a difference. I don't know.
Wow.
Unbelievable, right?
It's so unbelievable. I also want to believe, can we talk for a second? Like, sometimes I wonder if it's other women keeping women down.
Girl, that's a whole nother podcast episode that I'm happy to talk to you about. I have lots of those. So, I'm going to defend her. I'm going to say it wasn't that. I think because she's very emotional, and I've had a growth process with this particular person. When I first started, here's how weird this company was. When I first started, I wasn't reporting into her. Then all of a sudden I was reporting into her after a couple months, but no one told me. She was told, and she would say things to me and like expect me to say, like, give her information on what I was working on. I'm like, but why? I have a goal. I have things to do. And then all of a sudden I had a meeting with her, and it was like this meeting about how I'm not a good employee. I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. And I was just like, where is this coming from? And I realized she was my manager all like this for X amount of months, and I had no idea. And so she felt, and it was the first time she became a manager. So she felt a certain way
Right.
of how things should be, but she didn't know how to manage. And I was like, here's my task and I have to do it. I'm building something from scratch. You guys aren't. I have a whole new network that I'm selling, or two networks that I'm selling. So I'm working twice as hard to get it off the ground.
Right.
And she just didn't understand why I wouldn't want to collaborate with them. But that wasn't my task. So anyway, long story short, she ended up having this crazy meeting with me. And in the meeting, I'm sitting there, just like I'm sitting with you and listening to her, calm as a cucumber. And she starts crying. She starts crying. I think you don't respect me because I'm a couple years younger than you. And I was just like, you are.
No. Please tell me that wasn't
Genuinely didn't even know she was younger than me. This was her internal issues manifesting and outwardly coming out when she's having maybe her first conversation with me, which she then followed up with an email to me, which meant it was an HR thing at that point. This was way before the raise conversation, by the way. So that was just so surprising to me. And when I realized she was my manager, I was like, I have to make this woman feel secure and safe and confident in me, and me just doing my job without her knowing how I'm doing it and what I'm doing. Like, I had to manage her. And as an employee that is tasked with something so huge, it was just, and my old boss, by the way, when I went up to him and I was like, am I reporting to this person now? And he goes, yeah. And I heard about you too. Maybe you should play nice in the sandbox. That's all he said to me. This is all the same company, man. I can go into so many things about this one company that I was at for almost 5 years.
Oh my God.
Play nice in the sandbox with her.
Play nice in the sandbox? Okay, so before we move a little forward in this, you said something that kind of caught my attention at the beginning, was you were one of the few, not only females, but like ethnic females in the office who wasn't thrown into a supportive role.
Yes. That is fact.
That's a scary thought, mostly because we know there's been studies that women are usually, when women go after a high profile position, their male counterparts will often win, and they are then either taken on board and given the same titles, but given a lot more administrative work.
Yeah. Do remember though, in this, when I started the conversation, I said I came in as the least experienced in it. Yeah. So I came in to do a job that nobody wanted. It was a new position. It was two new networks that nobody sold for money. So it was an impossible task that had these goals to it. And I worked with this woman out of California. Everyone who knows me and who's listening to this will know exactly what I'm talking about and what company it is and all that stuff, but it doesn't matter because I'm not, it is truth. So it was almost like a role that no one cared about. I mean, again, I was making $70,000, I think, when I came in, maybe 60. It was very low level in their mind, even though the title was the same.
Right.
And so I went there specifically. I was like, fine, I'll cut my teeth on this. I'll take that title. I had a job that was lower level than that at a very large media company that offered me it the same week, and it was more money. And I chose to go to that company for the less money. So I kind of knew what I was walking into, but I felt like having that higher title would give me a leg up. So in the company, I did work as an account executive, and I did build my reputation amongst all of the ad agencies across the country. And I did what I was supposed to do. Right. And I could have gotten that opportunity somewhere else, but I came in there bottom up. So yeah, I'm not saying I was better than people who were doing a supportive role, but I think in their minds that was a supportive role because it was something nobody wanted. And then after I proved myself and the position became available, I think a year and a half later on the big boy team, because someone left, I was able to move in there. My quiet promotion situation where they ended up giving me some money to move in there. But yeah. Yeah.
I can see now where you're so passionate about like the pay, wage, and closing that gap.
That's how it's for sure. I will say with the one thing that I never really talk about with this particular company, and for anyone who's listening that know me and knows what company I'm talking about that still exists and is doing really well, different management, things have changed. There was definitely a sense of, I remember specifically my boss saying, oh, that guy, this person sounds so great. This guy sounds so great. Like looking at a resume, but he's Black. He's never going to get in. They like, these are the things that I would hear around me. There were comments made around me. And one of my good friends from this company, to this day, we didn't start off as great friends. And every time they would say stuff like that, I would just pop up from my thing. I heard that, and that's really offensive. Like I would just pop back down. Like I'm part Black and I don't like that. Or I'm part Asian. I don't like that. I'm part white. I don't like that. And I would just say that. And then finally one day she was actually like a mixed person who I guess pretend to be white. And she was like, what are you? Because we don't know what you are because you identify with all these different races. And I said, well, the thing is, I started laughing and I was like, that's a fair question. But the thing is, y'all shouldn't be saying things that's offensive, period.
Exactly.
And here's what my background is. And I am mixed with all these different things. You may not see it because you may think I'm Indian, but I'm not Indian. I have a mixture of different things in my background. And it is highly offensive when you say things about, even if it's the Asian culture and I'm not Asian, it's highly offensive to me. And that was it. But the thing is, they would say these things because they were so used to saying these things because there was nobody around. And then when people of color, again, it was an executive assistant or a receptionist that did really well. We always had billing people, but they were like low on the bottom, different floor, unseen, doing their jobs in and out. I think there was like a Hispanic man also. Anyway, the fact that I can count it on a hand is a problem for a company that has a couple offices, 3 offices to be exact. So yeah, there was a lawsuit eventually for this company about the, racist environment, the unfair environment, the just toxic. Specific examples will blow your mind. And I don't want to get into the specific examples because I'm not part of this lawsuit, thankfully, but it will blow your mind. I can tell you offline some of the things that were in that lawsuit that was like specific points.
So this lawsuit obviously didn't make like headline news. It
did.
Very quiet. Oh, it did. Oh, dang. I have questions.
I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened. I don't know who settled, what happened, if it went to, I don't know anything about it because I don't care. But all I know is when it was hot, I was asked to talk on certain things. And I said, absolutely not. I wasn't part of any of this and I don't know. And I do not, it's just not for me.
Right. Oh my goodness. But the actual pay gap that's happened. I don't know of a single woman who hasn't dealt with the pay gap. And this may be because I tend to have a lot of ethnic friends who have faced the same. I think yours is the biggest that I've ever heard of. I've never heard of $100,000 difference. Like that's a massive, massive difference. Let's go back for a second. Like how pissed off were you? Like
I wasn't. Even. That's the sad part. I wasn't even pissed off, man. I was just more like, wow, okay. Well, who is he? Let me look him up on LinkedIn. Like, oh, okay. Oh, and then when I met him, I was like, oh, this guy. Okay. Oh, this guy got fired within months of being there. Let's just put it that way. He produced nothing. The fact that he was able to command that. And the thing is, it's not a huge command. $180,000 today for a senior executive, a senior account executive that's not unheard of.
No.
Right. I wasn't a senior. I didn't really want to, I didn't think I deserved to be at $180,000 to be quite fair, but I thought I should just definitely be at 120 at least. Mm-hmm. That would have made me real happy. I probably would have stayed there for another 5 years.
Right.
Yeah. But it wasn't in the cards there. Thank God. I've grown so much. Yeah. Oh, I have not looked back. I've grown so much since then. And I have negotiated 150 plus base salaries and go in there. And I've even been told at one place that I was like, don't mention your salary because it's higher than others. We don't want issues. And I'm like, you think this is high? And sure enough, there were people in other companies that I worked at that I was making like 150, 160 as a base, and they're making 120 and they've been there for like 10 plus years. Same job. Women. But like, is that my place to fight the battle for every woman? No, I tried to, in this particular instance at another company, I tried to help this person be empowered, put your points together and do basically what I do now. And she was just so petrified, and she would go in and she would just say one comment and feel like that was enough to be like, I asked. And I'm like, all right, girl, like to each their own. Not everyone is willing to do it. Not everyone has the confidence. And even if you feel like you deserve it, you're still petrified to ask. And that's a total personal issue. But if you don't want to ask, you cannot complain that you didn't do everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, because if you ask and you get a no, then you have to decide, is this worth it to you? Are you staying here? And how much of this unhappiness are you willing to take? Because not everyone is happy at their job, surprisingly. Or should you leave? And people don't want to face that reality. But I would caution everyone, these are not your companies. These are other people's companies. You're there to do a job, and they are putting a salary to what you're bringing in for them. And if it is not enough, you need to figure out what is enough. And my clients, I usually say, you have to look at your market value within your industry, within people who have your experience. And there are so many ways to do that outside of talking to people that you've worked with in the past that's moved on, or people at competitive companies that have the same title. You can go on salary.com. You can go on indeed.com. You can go on glassdoor.com and look up those roles at your company and other companies. And there are people who have put these things down, and you can literally come up with what the range of your job with your experience within your area, because New York would obviously be different than, Idaho or something, of what you should be getting paid. And if you are severely under that, okay, if you are like right there, okay, maybe you don't have an issue and maybe you're fine with it, but know where you stand. You're an asset to a company. Know what your asset is worth.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love that you brought up the worth, because you really tied it, especially at the beginning of the recording, you really tied it back to like your value. Like it wasn't just about the money.
Yeah.
It ties into like your value. So go back to that, because now knowing that you didn't feel like you were worth at the time the 180 because you didn't feel senior, why didn't you feel like you were worth it? You definitely felt like you were worth the 120.
I mean, look, I came into this company at this title. I didn't have the title before. At the time when I asked, it was 4 years in doing that. I don't feel like my 4 years was comparable to somebody who maybe have been doing it for 10 years, who have those established relationships in the industry, who's weathered a storm, who've done, if you know anything about advertising, who's done upfronts, who's done all these things. I started off with digital networks, then I went into a broadcast network / cable network. And that's what my experience laid in. I don't think the thing is also, when you're looking at your salary negotiation, just because someone's making something way more than you doesn't mean that you are there yet. And that's okay. Maybe if I got the 180, I'd be like over the moon, like, oh my God. But I genuinely felt that was an overinflated number for me and what I was contributing. Because remember, I built my reputation there. I started off from the bottom there. This guy came in already, allegedly, I don't know, having pre-existing relationships, being at this other company that he was coming from that was a very major player in the marketplace, a very well-renowned company, coming into this smaller company. So he had to have been worth more, right? Like it had to be incentivized for him. So I'm not saying that I'm not worth it, but I'm saying I don't think I was worth it at the time. And that's okay, because you have to be realistic about what your worth is and what your experience is. And I truly believe that, because if I went into my boss and I said, man, he's making $180,000 and I'm the best in the best. I'm making this. I need $100,000 more. What do you think would happen? They would laugh at me.
Oh, no. Oh, for sure.
They wouldn't take, They wouldn't take my request seriously. No. They would tell me all the things of why, and they wouldn't even bother asking for anything. And if I asked for 180 and they came back with $20,000, which is perfectly acceptable, I would scoff at them. $20,000. Where's the other 80? You wouldn't be happy. That's what I'm saying. You have to do your research. The best research you can do is talk to peers or people who have been in your position or higher, who have left, who went to competitors. What did you make and you have to open up that conversation and be willing to share your information with them and say it in a way like, man, I think I'm really underpaid. I'm making $80,000 and this is what I'm doing. I know you were here and you left. Would you share with me what you're making, or at least a range, so I can know where I stand in the industry?
Absolutely.
Yeah, if you say it like that and you give information, no one's going to be like, nah, sorry. They're just maybe going to be like, well, that is low. I think you should ask for this range. Like, they may not tell you what theirs is, but they will give you advice based on their own. And you have to kind of read between the lines. Like, you have to do your research before you going and ask for these things. Because you can't go in and say, well, this Min's making 180 and I think I need to make 180.
I think that's also something that you learn as you're kind of going through this process, right? Like you going in guns blazing, asking for X amount, really your executive or your boss is really going to immediately put walls up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They have to make it when they do the ask. And I've been a manager too. When you do the ask, you have to validate that ask with data, with information. If an employee comes in here and tells me, I just need a raise because I'm working hard. I'm like, yes, you are working hard. So tell me what your accolades are. Well, don't you know my accolades? Don't you know how well I am doing? And that's the thing. Of course they do, but you should have the information about yourself. You should make it easy for them.
Right. You
just should. Absolutely. I said this earlier in the interview. I walked in there and I did all the wrong things. I did all the wrong things. One of the biggest things that I did wrong was that I didn't walk in there with my metrics and information and emailed it to her so she has it so she can just forward it on and come up with a plan. She had to do the work for me. Right. Second thing I did wrong. Every time I would follow up, I didn't follow up in the right way. I would just walk into her office and ask. There's no paper trail. The third thing I did wrong, the most important thing I did wrong, I got emotional about it.
Yeah.
No one wants to talk to an emotional person.
No.
You cannot not get emotional when it concerns you. So yeah, it's business, guys. It's business.
It is. Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. Talk to us about how we close this pay gap, because I'm telling you, there's so many people listening right now be like, okay, I get it. I get that I can't take it personally. I get that I can't go in guns blazing and I can't, but I don't want to not be undervalued. So after doing the research and knowing, what is the best attempt here for somebody to kind of go in and have proper discussion with their manager? Yeah.
I mean, look, once you've identified it and then you've prepared, I think the most important part is I call it the power up part. I have 4 steps. It's identifying that you deserve it and why. 2, gathering your information, making sure your T's are crossed, your I's are dotted. Where's your evidence? Where's your data? What are you going to ask for? Like, how are you going to lay it out? And the third thing is called powering up. It's basically, dude, you need to practice. You need to know what to say and you need to practice it out loud. Because if I go in there and they're like, no, I don't want to say, but why? I showed you why. Well, we just don't want to. Are you going to say, okay, and back out of the office? No, you're not. Are you going to fight because you get angry because they told you no? Know how to prepare for what the answers are going to be. It is the biggest thing. There are things that you can say that makes you neutral. If you practice these things, you tend to get less emotional. I personally think the more you practice for different scenarios out loud with a friend or just out loud by yourself in front of a mirror, what you're saying and training your brain to do is what you say out loud when you're feeling a certain way. But if you expect the worst and expect the best and know how to respond to that, you walk in confident. You walk in knowing that, I'm prepared for this conversation. And remember, to all of your people listening, if you're going to do this, this is your meeting. You created this meeting to talk about you. You should lead this meeting. Don't let them lead the meeting and say, well, what can I do for you? I want to raise, and I think I should be paid this. And as a manager, I'd say, okay, is that all? That you just wasted all your time. You just put a half an hour on their calendar to have a 2-minute conversation to say that you needed a raise. That's not all. Well, here's why I think I deserve a raise, and I'm under market value by this percentage. Here's a job description, as an administrative assistant, I'm supposed to do this, this, and this. I do that in addition to my supervisor's roles because there has been the need. And I also do these reports and these tasks and this and this and this. And my salary hasn't been increased since X amount of time. When I did my research with people who are working at competitive companies or my peers are making $10,000 to $15,000 more than I'm making. So I'm asking for this, be specific. Right. That goes a long way because you're laying out your expectation. You're saying what you want. You're saying you have the data. And then you stop and you wait for them to talk. You don't have to fill in every single sentence. Every single second. It's a conversation, but lead the conversation like your manager would. Why are you meeting with them? Right. What is your point? What do you have to show me? And then follow up with an email with those points. So that makes it easier for that person. Yeah.
Ooh, I like it. Now that you help women. So when did you leave the corporate world? And did you close your own wage gap before leaving?
Well, I've helped men too, believe it or not.
Sorry.
I've helped white men actually as well. But I do focus mainly on women, especially women of color. And yeah, I did. When I left, I 10 times my salary from when I first started. So I started off at 38,000 100 years ago, and I left more than $380,000.
Nobody's gonna believe it's 100 years ago, but that was cute.
You know, as it's been almost 20 years, let's say that. But I ended up making more than 380 by the time I left,
That's
the year that I
amazing.
left. And yeah, and I was just like, now how much is money worth to me? How much more can I make? And guys, if you're listening, you see how fearlessly I said my salary? You know how hard that would have been for me before? Yeah, I looked at it as I made a lot of money doing the same job with more experience. And I was able to save so I can focus on doing my own thing full time because I was burnt out. I was unhappy to get to that point, and it wasn't worth it to me. And I thought about what I would miss if I left the industry. And it was the conversation with other women, helping out the people who are younger, who are rising. And that was the biggest thing. And I was like, that's not even in my job description, but that's what I'm missing. And so I started my online platform, and I kind of never really looked back, except for recently. I'm kind of considering doing contract work for my own personal reasons. But yeah, besides that, I have not been doing a 9 to 5, and it's been the experience of spending time with my child, doing me, focusing on me is something that I don't think I ever would have. I don't think I ever would have had until I retired. And I'm so grateful for it.
Right.
Time is precious.
It is precious. Absolutely. I love that you closed off your own wage gap. That's amazing. But I love that you recognize like what you felt like you would have missed. Like how amazing. I don't think anybody does this enough. The conversations that you need to have with yourself in regards to what is really bringing you your true joy, because that's where the beauty lies. Love this.
Yeah. And I will say, I've been working since I was 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It is hard to be from an immigrant family, for someone who just wants to to prove to myself that I'm worth it, that I am worth the effort, that I've come this far. It's part of why I work so hard. My work ethic is there. I know nothing else. I can't do a half-ass job. That being said, I think when I left my 9 to 5, I was terrified. I didn't know what I would be doing, but I always knew I built up a reputation. I could go back to what I was doing if I needed to, maybe take a pay cut, maybe take a downgrade on title, whatever. Mm-hmm. If it was that important to me, I would do it. The thing is, it wasn't until the first month, then the second month, then the third month, I started to realize, whoa, my brain never functioned in a way that I wasn't allowed to. I was so set on the go, do, get the train, get the this, go to work, do this. It took me 2 months to uncob my brain, to take out all the cobwebs and to like dust off my creativity gene, to think, to be free. And I was like stressed about it as well, because I've never had time that I could just be me. And I remember thinking, I could see my husband was jealous about it because, he's still working. And I just spent so many years since I was 14, and I'm 41 now. So this was last year. So I was 40. So that's a long amount of years that I've been working and going and doing everything. So 2 months is nothing. But what ended up happening after those 2 months, I started thinking, what do I need to learn? How can I market myself online? What can I do that would make me happy?
Right.
I did a children's book. It's called The Fearless Bunny. I didn't know I would do a children's book. I didn't know I cared enough to do it. I have a gratitude journal. It's a weekly motivational gratitude journal where you write 3 things that you're grateful for each day, and it's by the week. I put all those on Amazon. And the reason I did that, I hated that because I was going back into when I was working still. I did it because I was going back into the office, and it took me an hour to get to the office and an hour back. So I did it within that 5 days. Oh, sorry, I had to go in 3 days a week. So it took me 6 hours to do that book. Yeah, because I was angry about going back in. There was a lot of stages, but I didn't know, even though that idea came to me, the other ideas came to me after my cobwebs were cleared. And I was allowing myself to think freely. And it's a scary thought, but it does happen. You forget who you are sometimes because your success has been defined by what other people are marking as success. If you have a job and you're making this money, you have the house, you have all these things. So you're a respected person in society, but have you stopped to think about what's filling your cup and what's bringing you joy? And I would tell
love
you
that you said that.
But because what I would have answered a year ago versus now, I would have answered all the other things. I love traveling. I love going out to dinner. I love doing trips with my friends. And now I'm like, I love being here for my son when I pick him up. I love having him tell me about his day, and he's 3 years old, and hearing it in his baby voice about the couple of friends that he played with at school. And everybody's a friend at school, no one's not his friend.
Yeah.
Like those are the things that I would have missed. And I'm grateful for it because I can appreciate those small things.
I love this. And I also love that you built a gratitude journal out of spite.
I did. And I love it. It's on Amazon. If anybody wants it, it's an actual thing that's mailed to you. It's called I Can and I Will. It's a weekly motivational journal. And every week, 3 small things. And I made it deliberately like 1 line per gratefulness, because I don't want you to, there's a lot of pressure to say, oh, I'm grateful that I have this job opportunity and this and this. No, I am grateful for my Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee that my cousin got me. And it was so freaking delicious. And I enjoyed it just by sitting there today by myself. Like my cup of coffee was wonderful today. It's the small things that push you forward.
Right. I absolutely love that. The gratitude journal will definitely be linked on the show notes. Do you miss the corporate world?
I do. It's hard. It's when people say no, I get it because I don't miss it. I don't miss what I was doing in terms of it gave no meaning to the world. But what I do miss is that team setting. I do miss people that I've worked with. I do miss my clients and giving, even though it's like what I sold was not like the best. It was just in terms of helping the world. We had jobs to do. We did it and we worked together and it was like a common thing. And I missed that part of it. If I could do that and not have to deal with the BS, the unnecessary meetings about meetings, people telling me what to do when they really just don't understand what I'm doing. Like if you could just tell me, here's my job, do this, give me the results, and I could just do it, that would be ideal. Yeah. But I miss some things about the corporate world, but I think it would be weird if I said I didn't miss some things. I miss having a corporate card. I miss traveling to conferences and meeting people and like getting room service by myself and watching TV because I don't want to go out and have drinks. Like those are the small things that I by myself because, now I can't be by myself. Those are the things that I miss. And listen, it makes sense. I've been working in corporate America since I was, I think, 16. I started working in an internship at a fashion company every summer. And then I moved on right after college. I started working in corporate. So it makes sense that more than half my life I've been working in corporate America. So I will miss some of it. But yeah, maybe I'll just build my own corporation like that. You never know.
I love that. That's amazing. I love that. And now you might get a glimpse of it going back and doing some consulting.
Yeah, seriously contemplating it because of the parts that I miss. I'm wondering if this would be different. I've had a few opportunities recently. Some of it didn't pan out. Some of it did. And I'm just like, I'm learning to follow my instincts more. And something that sounded so wonderful, I got an email about the next steps in terms of like onboarding. And I was just like, nope, not going through this stuff again, not having you manage me because now it's feeling like it's not consulting. And I was not bad. And I felt okay walking away from that opportunity. That was an incredible opportunity because no one can buy my time anymore. I choose what I can do and what I can live with. And that's the power that I got by walking away from my 9-to-5 and learning how to be on my own for the past year. So,
oh my gosh, that was a mic drop moment right there. That was a mic drop moment. Nobody can buy my time anymore. That's huge. I loved this conversation. So as we're wrapping up, where can people find you? Because one, if you visit her Instagram, you're constantly talking about the pay gap, finding your worth. You're like the big older sister that we all need for the corporate world.
Yeah. Well, definitely my Instagram at Meera Hardin. I have Instagram, TikTok, Facebook. You can go to meerahardin.com. My website tells you a little bit more about me. And currently, I am in the process of finding about 10 women that I want to do market research with who are in this situation. I'm not asking for money. I just really want to learn more so I can really hone that part of my business, because I do coach, but I have an online course that I would love people to kind of buy into it. But I realize when it comes to talking about something so personal, like your salary, not everyone wants to do it on a course level. They want the one-on-one. And so I'm looking for about 10 women that I can speak to and really ask them some questions about their situation and kind of revamp my coaching and stuff from there. So
I love that.
if you are one of those people, hit me up, Meera Hardin, at Meera Hardin, or follow me on Instagram and definitely DM me. I say 10 women, but I'm probably going to make this an ongoing project, because the more you learn, I could only tell you from my experience and the people that I've worked with, but I think there's this stigma around pay. There's this stigma around women asking. Even the Gen Zers, when I worked with a lot of them, we would be like, the audacity for them to think that they're going to get promoted after a year and a half or a year and they're going to leave. But at the same time, like, I would have loved to have gotten promoted after a year and a half, but they're doing the bare minimum. They're doing their job. And they're like, why can't I get promoted? And I'm like, you're not doing more than your job. And I question that now. I'm like, why should you have to do more than the job that you were expected? You should be promoted into the job that I'm asking you to do, not show that you could do it before. So my mentality has shifted a little bit. So Meera Hardin, guys.
I love that. Okay, one final question, Meera. Because it's an coffee podcast. What is your favorite coffee order?
Oh, I'm a black coffee girl.
Black. Oh my God, I did not expect that. I was about to call you a psycho because I was like, wait, what?
Black coffee, any kind. I think
really?
if you could drink it black.
Nice teeth.
Huh?
You have such nice teeth. Well, black coffee tends to stain your teeth. That's the reason that I don't drink it black.
Oh, when you learn to drink coffee black, and it was a process for me to get there, you're not taking any sugars, you're not taking any dairy or anything like that. You really taste coffee. Your relationship with coffee will change. I'm not saying I don't have the occasional cappuccinos and lattes and stuff like that. I do occasionally have those things. I'm a big Starbucks in the can drinker sometimes. I need that on the weekends. But I sit with myself every morning and I will have different kinds of coffee. This morning was Jamaican Blue Mountain coffee that I got from Jamaica, delivered to me by a friend of my cousin who was visiting for an ASL deaf thing that she was doing. The other one that I was doing, yesterday I had English coffee from Fortnum and Mason, and I have a variety pack, and I have the Queen's coffee, I have Piccadilly Circus, and then I have the King's Coronation coffee. Very weird. I drink them all black. You can taste the difference between every single one. It's like wine to me.
Ooh. Oh my gosh. I love this. I will not be doing that, but
you can do it. When I started doing it, I didn't love it. And then on the weekends, I would put a little creamer, but I noticed it started being less and less. I started off doing, I think it was agave.
Oh, yes.
It was agave as a sweetener. And then I would put a little bit of milk or whatever. And then I eventually stopped it. Like I kept weaning myself off, because I realized when I started drinking coffee as a teenager, it would be like 4 sugars and milk. And I'm like, what is this? What do I need this for? I have infinite amounts of energy, and yes, I'm putting caffeine and all this crap in it. And as I get older, I was just like, if I'm going to continue to do this habit forever, I need to make this habit, I guess, healthier. Right. And I'm a black coffee drinker. I love it.
Oh, all right. Well, something I probably may try, but I have tried a couple of times. It might just be the wrong coffee. Now that I think about it, the way you're talking about these coffees.
You should start off with a light roast.
Oh, that's a tip. Okay, good. I will
start off with a light roast. Put agave, something very natural, as a sweetener, maybe a stevia or something.
And that's a wrap, latte lovers. A huge thanks to Meera for gracing us with her knowledge and energy on the Share a Latte podcast. Just like crafting the perfect blend of coffee, your career demands the right blend of effort, commitment, and the perfect strategies to savor success. Take Meera's insight to heart, brew your dreams, and keep stirring those career aspirations for a fulfilling future. Thanks for tuning in today, besties. Until next time, keep that coffee brewing and those dreams pursuing. If today's episode warmed your heart, please hit that subscribe button and join me on future journeys. Enjoyed the chat today? Your thoughts and feedback mean the world to me, and they really help others find the magic in Share a Latte. Every story enriches our journey. Remember, you can turn your trials into triumphs and your scars into stars. Keep believing and keep chasing those dreams. This is Min taking her last sip from the Share a Latte podcast, where life happens and coffee helps.